All right, it's taken a while to figure out how I'm going to run this year, and I'm probably going to make a lot of changes, but here is a quick review of this year's syllabus. I'm just kind of loading things in as I think of them and as they change. If you see something moving behind me, that's LaFonda. You'll get to know her. So first up, my name is Mr. Heidenreich, but most people call me Mr. H. My wife up at the high school, she's usually called Mrs. H. And that's helpful for getting my email, cheidenreich@jcsdk12.org. The phone number I have at the school, I don't often check it, whereas the email goes straight to my cell phone, and you can get a hold of me if I'm at home or walking around the school, I'll still get the email. I have a blog. I've been using it a lot, tjhslifescience.blogspot.com. We won't need it as much. This is usually where I put extra things that we do. So if you get done in class with an assignment, I might say, hey, before you have some free time, go watch one of these 2 videos I posted. So the Google Suite of Apps and Google Classroom is where most links will live, not all, but most. And the blog is where fun extra stuff goes. And the blog is public, whereas Google Classroom you need to log into. So I expect a writing utensil, although we will be using paperless. Someplace to store papers, although we will be using paperless. Earbuds or headphones, while not really required, are really helpful because we're going to be working at different speeds, and being able to hear videos that I've given you without hearing the rest of the class, that's nice. And also if you have a little microphone on your earbuds, that helps you record a little better. That'll be especially helpful if we can go outside and then record videos and spread out from each other. The iPad is required, and hopefully a textbook. Not all my textbooks got returned, so we'll see in the first week if I get the rest of them back. Otherwise, I might not have enough. And I might use a website called CK12 that some other science subjects are using this year. So the iPad needs to be charged. You're supposed to take it home in case we get shut down. And you're supposed to bring it back, and you're supposed to have it charged. And I know many of you have phones, and you seem to do a pretty good job about keeping those charged. We need to be just as good about keeping our iPads charged, because a lot more of our learning this year is going to get pushed through the iPads. Topics, I talk about cells first, then heredity, then evolution, then how we classify life, then microbes, and right after microbes, diseases, and then ecology, which is a really big unit about how we look at big life and how living things interact. And if we get time, we go into local wildlife, which is usually fun to do in the spring as life reemerges. My expectations, respect myself and students and all the living things in the room. If you get a chance, we might feed the one behind me some hot dogs. She has a neighbor, Crush. He gets veggie pellets, and then we have some fish to feed and some plants to take care of. In the past, some of the plants grew food like hot peppers. We're not going to eat those in class because I don't need people going for 30 minutes like they used to. That's just not as good in the current situation. So what we need permission to do, to leave the classroom, to go in the back room, or the cabinets. So I have a back room where I store chemicals. The cabinets, I just have a lot of storage. I don't want it to get all mixed up. Handling lab equipment, you will help me with labs sometimes, or you'll have your own individual lab equipment like glassware to work with, so we want to be careful there, and we want to have permission for that. Feeding the animals and watering the plants, we can actually hurt them by overfeeding and overwatering, so I just kind of want to know what's going on. And this year, removing your mask. We will hopefully have a decent number of times to do that, but we need to do it in a controlled way, just not whenever you feel like it. And we're still not sure what the rules are for mask breaks. So we have regular breaks. If we have a class where it makes sense, sometimes there's a good moment just to take 3 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes, usually 3 minutes to chill out. And that's a great time to check your status if that's really important to you, or to, talk to friends, or to just, go to the bathroom. We can't send hordes of people to the bathroom this year. We have to be careful about crowding. Now, we won't necessarily get a break every day. Some activities don't get broken up well. When we take breaks, sometimes that might be a mask break. We're not entirely sure what this will look like, But right now we need to be 6 feet apart to take a mask break. If the weather allows it, it's easier to take those outside to spread out, especially with the fresh air and the way that blows things away. And taking a mask break might not mean we take a break from work. So we might take a mask break and keep working, or the other way around, we might take a break from work but keep our masks on. Those aren't, you don't get a break from both necessarily. So this is all new. This may change. So on the back of the syllabus, you have a place to put comments for me. And so at the end of going over this with your folks, they can ask me questions. They can write a comment just to tell me something about you that I don't need to answer, or we can do the Google form. So on the front of this is a Google form with a scanning code. And so if you don't want to return the paper version, or if you forgot the paper version at school, this form, this little scanning code that you can see, oops, wrong way, up there, that takes you into a similar thing where this video will be sitting, or maybe you already found this video there. So we don't need to have a signed paper if you've done the digital form. If you don't want to do the digital form, or you can't, then we're doing the signed paper, and we're just cutting off this portion of the syllabus and bringing this back to make sure that people understand. Now at the bottom there is a place for contact information, whether that's a cell phone or email. Your folks can give me their preferred contact, which I only need if in rare circumstances if I need to talk to them. How do I grade things? This might change, but I usually start out with a participation and preparation grade. So if you show up prepared and participate, you get 20 points. Everybody starts with 20 points. I actually put 10 extra credit points in here. So if you go above and beyond the normal call of participation, or doing something that I didn't require to do, but that was still awesome, then you can get extra points there. But you can also lose points in this category if you show up, for instance, more than once without your iPad charged. That'll just be 1 point, which isn't a big deal if it happens once in a marking period. But what this is to discourage a lack of participation and a lack of being prepared habitually. It's rare, but a few students lose a lot of points here. Most students keep all their points here, and it really helps out their grade a little bit. Science, language, arts. My wife is an English teacher. I like to do a lot of writing and vocabulary exercises. And science, it's appropriate because science is kind of like a new language with a lot of its own fancy terminology. And so this, honestly, once you get used to it, this is a really easy place to get points. The only people who lose points here are the people who just don't try. It's not hard to do. Late work, whether it's vocab might change this year how I do that, but it's 1 point per term that we focus on. And homework, it's 1 point per question. The numbers might change, but if this work is late, we're going over it, the next day, then it's really hard to show that you've done it. I either have to ask you to leave class, which I can't do well this year. And so if it's late, then we lose points right away. But there's a bit more flexibility this year as in what is late from daily work. Late labs and projects, those are different. Those are much more individualized. And so you can always make them up. They won't be given zeros, but they'll be given a zero until you make them up. So labs and projects are bigger, but you can always make them up. Day-to-day work that I expect you to do in one day, so it's usually anywhere from like 5 to 8 questions or something easier. We normally have enough class time to do that, and if you don't finish, you only have a few things to finish outside on your own. So hopefully that's not a big deal, but for some people who goof off in class, this can get them some zeros. Tests, I'm going to change. So for tests, whether or not it stays at 25 points, what they're going to look like is going to change a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. And not every unit or chapter we have has a test. Sometimes a project, if you look at research down there, takes the place of a test. So we can have a chapter where we studied a lot, but our project, whether that's a presentation or a writing we do, takes the place of a traditional test. Cheating or plagiarizing on these projects. Basically, if you go to Google and you just copy and paste a bunch of junk and pretend that you did a project, that can result in a zero, and it doesn't have to stay there if you resubmit and fix the project. So in severe cases, I will give you a new topic and you'll have to start over. In mild cases of plagiarism, I will make you fix the smaller parts you plagiarized. When you're unexpectedly absent, we'll give you time to make up work. However, because of all our digital capabilities, we can work from home pretty easily. So unless your Wi-Fi is out and you're unexpectedly absent, you should be able to work seamlessly online at home or in the classroom. So that's a little different this year. Each situation is unique. So if you're worried about it, I can be reasonable. But if you were just, you slept in and didn't come to school, and you didn't do the work that was due that day, then that's a little tricky. And I'll explain this. It's not a big deal. It doesn't happen to most people. Extra credit I do offer. I don't offer it at the end of a marking period because that time period's already completely nuts. So when I offer extra credit during the middle of a marking period, please take advantage of it. You never quite know when you'll need it, when you're like 88.6 was almost an A and you just didn't do that extra credit assignment that was super easy because you didn't feel like it. That's what I kind of want to avoid. And I don't want to have, 30 people asking me for extra credit the day before grades are due because I honestly don't have enough time to do all that right at the end of a marking period. Everything's different this year, so the only thing we can expect is change. So I intend to adapt my practices and change what I do during the year. I fully expect I'll make mistakes, and I also expect sometimes students will struggle. So if I'm trying a new app or assignment, I'm going to be a little bit more lenient with my expectations from students, and I hope everyone's a little bit more lenient with the expectations from me. If it's obviously not working out, then we'll just scrap the new thing and move on. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to do some fun new things to take the place of other traditional things that we can't do in this environment, like group labs where we're all touching molecules. That's not so awesome this year. So I'm going to try to find something else. So while I am embracing new technology, I'm not going to try like brand new things every week. I'm going to try to settle into a technology routine, hopefully by the end of October, and then try to keep with that. I have a lot of apps I like. A lot of it's in the Google Suite. A few are outside. And I think once you get used to my routine, you'll find that it's predictable, but also a little bit more interesting than some tech routines you might find this year. So we'll do this. We can handle this. I appreciate you sticking it out with me here. If you have gone over the syllabus with your guardian, then you can either fill out the bottom of that paper and both sign off on it and write any questions on the back of the paper, or you can scan and fill out the Google form and do that instead of turning in the paper. So we have about a week to do this, and it's your first easy assignment. So I look forward to getting these back and hearing from home, and I look forward to seeing everybody on Tuesday. And hopefully you get to see LaFonda, because she's real excited to see everybody, aren't you, girl? Yeah.